Hey, today's Q&A is about water, and that is, it was a challenge, and that is the person said, I have an idea of something that for sure doesn't need hashkacha, and that's water. It can't be. What could be wrong with just plain old water? So this was a challenge, a bet between two different people that they could think of something that doesn't need hashkacha, and to see whether that's correct or not. So when you say, the answer for that is, if you're saying that you're thinking about water not needing hashgacha, obviously you mean water that has not flavors and has no other additives, wasn't pasteurized on treif kalim, and isn't from a city that has insects in their water. So if all those things were correct, then that would be true, that for a retail bottle of water, there would be no issue, there would be no kashrus issues. What I am going to mention, is that on an industrial level, things are a little bit more complicated, and they're actually water that can be non-kosher, and in three different ways. The first is like this: when a company wants to make something concentrated, like condensed milk, or concentrated juice, or condensed soup, or something else like that, what they're doing is they're taking some kind of a liquid and boiling most of the water out, leaving behind something more, a thicker, just the core of the main thing that's in there. Let's say the juice or the milk or the soup or whatever it is. So when companies in general make lots of efforts to be as efficient as possible, and they want to reuse everything that they can. Anything with any value to it, they want to reuse as a way of being efficient, save money. Well, if they're concentrating chicken soup, for example, then the water that boils out of that soup is hot, and it's free. This water, they have to do things, pay to get water. Plus, this water is also hot. Also, it's already been heated up. So they will capture the water that's boiling out, the vapors that are boiling out, turn it back into water, and use it elsewhere in the factory to cook things or to clean things. And whatever that water that they capture has the same status of whatever it came from. So if it came from milk, they were condensing milk, it would be milchigs. And if it came from treif soup or from stam yain grape juice, then it would be not kosher. And anything you make with that water or any equipment that you clean with it would also have the same status, would be milchigs or treif or etc. Okay, that's one. A similar idea happens in a vinegar plant, but it sort of happens in the opposite way. When I said that you concentrate things by boiling them, that's how most things are concentrated, but vinegar is actually concentrated by freezing it. So vinegar companies will produce vinegar and concentrate it because their industrial clients, like the people who are using vinegar to make ketchup or something else, will take it in a concentrated form. It's easier to ship, it's easier to work with, so they freeze it. And if they concentrate their wine vinegar, then the leftover water, the water that froze that did not stay in the vinegar, would be treif. Now, and then that treif water is now floating around the plant. You wouldn't want them to use that treif water in producing, let's say, their white distilled vinegar, which is about 90% water. You'd want to make sure that they weren't using that treif water to make the kosher products that they have. Related to that, not exactly, but similar, another thing in a vinegar plant is that vinegar, we all know, has a very strong odor, and when the air that escapes out of the vinegar plant people can find unpleasant, or it could be bad for the environment. So in some places, they scrub the air before it leaves the plant. Meaning they're doing something to try to remove the odor from that air before it leaves the plant. And a common way to scrub air is by using water. And basically you're transferring the odor into the water and then letting the rest of the air escape. And then, of course, again, if what we're scrubbing is from the vapors from non-kosher vinegar, then that water that was used for scrubbing is not kosher, and should not be allowed to be used in the white distilled vinegar. Okay, now the last thing is that happens in the distillation of alcohol, which is to say if you want to make bourbon or something else, some other kind of alcohol or scotch, you ferment the grain that you're working with. It gets a certain percentage of alcohol, let's say 14, 15%, and then you distill it. Which is essentially means you boil out the water, the water that's in there to make it into you boil out the alcohol that's in there, to make a higher concentration of alcohol. So your bourbon will be 40 or 50% alcohol, and leaving behind in the pot, you're leaving behind something with a lot of liquid to it. Now, that water left behind that did not boil out in the distillation has lots of flavor in it because not everything boils out. So the whiskey company might use that in their next batch of product. That water, instead of putting fresh water that has no flavor to it, they'll take water from one batch and use it in making the next mash. A mash is the mix of the grains in the water. So that means is that even if a specific product from a company, a specific whiskey, is completely non-chametz, but it's possible that the water that they're using is actually chametz because it's left over from a chametz production of something else that was being made, which would mean is you'd have to get rid of it or sell it before Pesach. So those are three different ways that water on an industrial level might be not kosher or chametz or milchigs, etc., or something like that. And that's it.